Hi, everyone. So I wrote this piece with my sister, and it's basically just documenting our twin love for each other. And I'm going to read some of my favorite parts of it, and it's kind of like a timeline of our relationship. So the first thing is birthday party, age 6. Soundtracked by Nigerian pop music, R&B, and Radio Disney, we danced the day away in our matching red blouses and freshly braided hair. We had invited practically the whole Bay Area Igbo community, and our mom still pulled random kids from the park to get a slice of our extra large Costco cake. The day felt special, they felt like the perfect combination of each of our worlds: school friends, church friends, friends from home, and friends from the neighborhood. The next one is our first period, and this is from my perspective, and I'm gonna read from Ugochi's perspective. When I first got my period, I was 12 years old. I had been anticipating it for a really long time and thought I was late to the period party. I remember waking up one morning, seeing the blood, and getting extremely excited. I thought having my period would somehow make me a more sophisticated or adult-like. But after the first day, I realized that I was the same old Ugochi, just bloodier. And this is from Ugochi's perspective. The day I woke up to Ugochi getting her period, I was livid. Prior to that, Ugochi and I were weirdly excited for puberty and used to page through puberty books and talk breathlessly about the journey of womanhood. We would have long discussions about the best places to stash our theoretical pads and tampons, and bonded over pseudoscientific facts that claimed to grow boobs faster, including chugging milk, scarfing down top ramen with spinach, and fervent praying. Because I was older, by 1 minute, I thought I would get my period slightly before. Or I could agree to us getting it at exactly the same time. We did every single thing together, buying matching training bras and even losing our baby teeth. But Ugochi getting her period first was a physical reminder that we were growing, and it wouldn't always be at the same time. That day, I gave her the silent treatment and only broke it to comment on how she was definitely PMSing or to mutter that she was a traitor. This was true. I calmed down by the second day because I realized that she could now fill me in on what it was really like to have a period. When mine came a few months later, I was thoroughly underwhelmed, but happy to have another thing in common with my sister once more. The next one was family emergency. Our brother, Michael, is undoubtedly the family favorite. With his outgoing attitude and acceptances to top-tier colleges, he's what our relatives want their kids to be, and someone we all look up to. When he was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma in November 2015, it shook our whole family. This is from my perspective. I kept telling myself that it wasn't real. The doctors had somehow misdiagnosed him. I tried to handle it the same way I handle other emotional situations, to move on and act as if nothing had happened. I knew Michael didn't want us to make a big deal out of it, so I tried to act normal and joke around with him, but everything felt forced. When we went back to school, I broke. I tried to suppress my feelings, but I could not deny that I was terrified. I spent a good portion of that year crying alone and not knowing how to process my emotions. I finally realized that I needed to talk to someone. This is from Ugochi's perspective. When we found out about Michael, we had just been confirmed into the Catholic Church. In confirmation class, we learned about the 7 sacraments, which is basically a bucket list of holy things to achieve before you die. Confirmation is the second step. I remember being really confused. Here was my brother, who had just started college, and whom I saw as so full of life, now possibly staring at the end of it. This wasn't how the order of sacraments was supposed to go. Our family turned to prayer, nightly rosaries around Michael's bed, my mom randomly dousing the house in holy water, anything to provide us with some sense of control. But what had once felt comforting now felt suffocating. I didn't have the same confidence in God that had prompted me to get confirmed. I felt hollow. This is the both of our perspective again. As cliche as it sounds, even in dark times, there is always light. In the hardest year of our lives, we were each other's light to see our way through. We healed each other, sometimes with teary-eyed talks about how it was hard to balance fears for our brother, school, and our outside lives. Sometimes with movie marathons and candy. We grew closer as a family, Skyping often just to check in. We prayed, and slowly the act felt meaningful again. In June, Michael went into remission. And this last section is the future, which is now kind of the present. And this is from my perspective. When we were in elementary school, Ugochi and I made a plan to be next-door neighbors and marry another set of twins. But after 17 years of being attached at the hip, we've abandoned that plan. We'll always be best buds, but applying to different colleges and continuing to grow on our own, like traveling to other parts of our world, is something that I'm excited for. Oh, this is from Ugochi's perspective. Although we had a pact to go to different colleges, we still ended up applying to a lot of the same ones. But even if we wind up at different schools, which we did, it doesn't mean we'll feel more distant. We've gone through it all, and a few miles between us won't keep me from finding a way to borrow half the clothes in Ugochi's closet, which she still does. With FaceTime and Skype and everything else, my sister won't be too far away. Thank you. And next we have Tova.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. It's such an honor to be here on a day that is literally about celebrating love. That's a really cool thing. So I'm gonna read a love letter. And when I read this at the last event, somebody came over to me afterwards really nicely and they were like, that was a love letter? But neuroticism is also love, so. Okay, and this is about just like loving somebody on the internet and whether love is possible on the internet. It is. Rather than beginning this letter the usual way, by telling you where I am, I'm going to tell you about my medium, which will tell you where I am. The big screen of the library computer with the clunky keyboard with a different kind of grab. The mouse has its own entity, requiring me to cup with my hand when I want to navigate my document, asking for more pressure from fingers, which click instead of press. I absentmindedly move the physical mouse around the library desk as I try to move the cursor down the screen. Behind the screen are two outlets. Underneath the screen is the computer itself. Maybe I've broken our unspoken code by mentioning the computer, as we keep calling these emails to each other letters. The most fascinating part of this text and digital media class I'm taking has been discussions re the materiality of the texts we read online, not just in relation to legitimacy or authority, but the very physicality, the plastic my fingers cup now, the glass or fiberglass of the screen, the wires that connect the screen to the wall behind me, which are then connected to a whole other slew of wires and hardware and fiberglass. Though we tend to think of media as existing in the faraway cloud, it must be accessed through some physical medium. It does not exist untethered, floating in the air like thought. And this is a quote. Digital texts can seem strangely immaterial or disembodied. Like so much online, they are often thought of as virtual because they are so elusive as physical objects. No web page would exist without a vast clutter of tangible stuff. The monitor on which it appears, but also the server computer, the client computer, the internet backbone, cables, routers, and switch hotels. But it is nonetheless strikingly intangible. What is it? Where is it? It is no coincidence that I am thinking about you as I read these writings, the person I began to love through a screen or a digital text. Sometimes I consider the body of the person I got to know as I read your first letters, as you emailed them to me, text in your chosen font that appeared in other fonts when I opened your documents on my screen, words that shrank as I read your missives on my phone. It is strange to think about the materiality of you when we first met, and still now, as you largely exist in words, whether written or spoken out loud. Later, Gittelman talks about the historicity of the internet, or the kind of history making possible online. When I search for a web page, the results I receive are not the web page as it has existed in all its 5 to 10 years or so. It's only the most recent version. The internet is just as good at covering up its own history as it is at storing information. If I want to know what Facebook looked like 7 years ago, I can go to another website and see screenshots other people took of their own Facebook pages 7 years ago, but I can't get this kind of information from the Facebook.com page itself, which will only show me how it looks today, this moment, this second, a page that will always already change in an hour when I check it again. Hence the book's title, Always Already New. I am suddenly remembering how, on the phone a few nights ago, you told me, in a voice that was tenuous and tender and so self-aware that the tone was almost unrecognizable to me, you said, "But in some ways, Tova, I am just getting to know you." It is hard to separate you just now or still or always getting to know me and vice versa from the medium through which we are constantly engaging. The fact that every day we reach out and try to touch each other through the material wires and screens and keyboards of these digital texts and words that are constantly rewriting themselves in their own histories. But the digital conversations we had tumbled so effortlessly into our real-time interactions. The data that flowed between the time when I had not felt your body in my arms and the time when I did was continuous and never discrete, existing on an infinite plane of possibilities. When I see you now, I see your clean-shaven face, hear your words as they exist today, the person you are right now. But when I call you by your name, you are not just the boy who has already newly rewritten himself, but you are also a hard drive of data that I can access, data of all your past selves, the same selves that make up my experience as well. Deeper into Gittleman. Did you know that in 1996, the average lifespan of a web page was 75 days? That means in 1996, a single web page could only remain as it was for 75 days before somebody would change it or move it or delete it. In 2000, the number was smaller, 44 days. Lifespan, as though a web page were a thing, like a plant or a butterfly, that flits for a few days and back before it becomes dust. But when a web page dies, it becomes an error 404 page. After reading the lifespan number of 44 days, I searched for some old websites from the 90s, defunct sites like Little Graves, scattered across the Google search results. I typed, "How long is the average relationship?" Google tells me in 0.63 seconds that the average relationship lasts 2 years and 9 months. This is the top search result, so it shows up in a little box with a link to Katie Winter's 2014 Daily Mail article, "Death of the 7-Year Itch," announcing the average relationship is just 2 years and 9 months, and social media is to blame. Based on a survey of 1,953 UK adults. And now I've given this statistic a new lifespan, writing it to you. Recently, I read about all the effort put into keeping some endangered species alive, and I can't remember which, only to have it die a very short period later. I remember how heartbroken I felt when I read that. It isn't surprising to me that I would remember feeling heartbroken, yet forget the name of the species, as though the feelings moving through my body are disconnected from the objects that cause them. As though feelings, like digital text, have a strikingly intangible material life, the kinds of things that constantly rewrite themselves even as they exist in a trembling hard drive, vulnerable to damage and erasure and censorship. Sometimes I think I will never forget that I felt this way. And then I do. It seems horribly scary to invest so much time and energy and emotion into something that will eventually wind down to the end of its life, be it 44 days or 2 years and 9 months. And then what? The last thing I read today was an essay about the digital and the analog by John Livignino, and so much of it read like poetry to me. He talked about how the brain can or can't be compared to the computer, and whether the brain functions like digital, integers, or something that can be reduced to numbers, or like analog, data, represented by physical quantities which change continuously, or both. He writes that people tend to think of data as either digital or analog, but the essential nature of data is neither of these things. Digital and analog are just systems or ways of delivering data, and not the information itself. Still, at the same time, data isn't an independent entity. It's embedded in the systems that deliver it. I guess this is something like language. We sometimes think of language as divided into body language or spoken language, body perhaps being the more subtle delivery, with spoken the more precise. But language isn't only spoken or body. The mouth or the gesture is just the way we deliver the communication. Like data, spoken language could be more subtle or less precise than body language, although we still think of communication as tied up with the systems, the hand or the mouth that transmit it. Probably because language can't entirely be separated from these systems. It is hard to communicate language without my body or my mouth. Remember the first "I love you" that you sent me, and the many times you've said or sent it since, which have all been mediated by some type of technology? When you sent that first "I love you," it upset me because I thought it wasn't real, and I told you that I wouldn't believe you, couldn't believe you loved me until you told me in person. But the words "I love you" and the feelings behind them aren't the systems that deliver them. Even though your "I love you" was transmitted digitally in a text message, prefaced by the code that sent it, a compressed combination of numbers and symbols. Even so, the message itself is unchanged. In this sense, I love you is both quantitative and infinite, a set of signifiers that hold the same network of feelings, whether you deliver it to me digitally or write it on a piece of paper, whether you send it through your body or your tongue. The best line from the essay. It has become common in popular usage to talk about the analog as the category that covers everything that isn't digital, but in fact, most things are neither. The images, sounds, smells, and so on that we live among have mostly not been reduced to information yet. Thank you. Neuroticism is love. Please welcome Diamond. Diamond, I just looked at your name and it's Jazmine. You need microphones.
Don't worry, Diamond will be up soon. My name is Jazmine Hughes, and I need 3 volunteers. All right, you, and you. And Laia Garcia, will you join me on the stage, please? For my Rookie on Love essay, I talked to... Come on up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, come up here. Come. You've seen this before.
I know, that's why I was like...
For my Rookie on Love essay, I got into a group text with my 4 younger sisters, my one and only loves. Well, I guess my 4 and only loves. And I asked them if they thought we loved each other. So I'm going to have everybody play the part of my 4 sisters, and we're going to read the group text together. I need 4 books.
You're here.
I have 4 books. Okay. All right, you guys want to spread out so everyone can see you? Okay. Let me get this to you. How's everybody going? Everyone doing well? All right. Guys, will you open your books to page 251? So like I said, I have 4 younger sisters, and we're relatively close. We're all about 2 years apart in age, but we're not like a really, really like close-knit, huggy family. We don't talk on the phone that much. We don't actually see each other all that often, but we do stay in the group text all day. So one day I made everyone actually sort of just sit down and hang out with me, and I asked them if we thought we loved each other. Is the mic on?
Yes, maybe.
No.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to play myself. I'm Jazmine. I'm 26, and I live here. You are going to play my sister, Jermaine. She's 23 years old. She's very mean. You're going to be Javon. You're going to be her twin, Javonda. And you're going to be my youngest sister, Jamari. For whatever reason, I decided to include the name of the dog, who is Jessie. I don't think that's going to come up, but it's just a fun fact for you guys. It's free. And just try to pass around the mic as best you can, I guess. Okay, first question. Do we all like each other? I like you guys now, but I still think you all are jerks.
You all right?
I like you all because I'm supposed to, but Jamari would be that friend I talk to in class, and only because I have nobody, and I never talk to Jermaine. Maybe only to get study guide answers or something. Javon is the bestie, and Jazmine is the cool kid I want to notice me.
When did you start to like everyone? You guys all loved me when I moved out.
Once the twins graduated from high school, I started to like them more. I've always liked Jamari.
Yeah, Jazz, you've always been cool. Jamari has just been the baby, so I think we secretly liked her. And Jermaine has been back and forth.
I literally do nothing to you people.
I sort of like Jermaine. She's okay. Here, do you want to come up here with me? Sure.
I like y'all. I just prefer the dog. And I've always liked y'all, but it wasn't until last year that me and Nanda became best friends.
Did you guys know that Jamari and Javonda are best friends? She told me, and I cried.
Best friends.
This is a forced friendship. I've been trying to reach out for help.
She's just joking.
Nanda, do you not want to be best friends with your little sister?
Nah, on some real, Jamari and I are only homies because I don't have any friends, and Jermaine is mean to me.
I'm not mean.
It's just an emoji. It's just an emoji. Javonda, does Jamari keep you less lonely? Will you talk to her every day after you move to California? And do you think Giovanna's your best friend?
No, I am.
Yeah, Jamari is like my new dog I bought because of a tragedy or something. I'll snap her when I'm in Cali. Maybe call to bother her or be random, but Javon is the goat.
Jamari, are you gonna miss Nanda when she moves?
Yeah, Jamari is like, the people want to know Lamari. I feel bad though for leaving her alone. She only has the pups. Yo, we need friends.
No, I won't miss her that much. I have the dog.
Another emoji. Would you guys say you're closer to your sisters than to your random friends?
Yeah.
I guess, but not really.
Say more.
Yes and no. I don't tell them my business, but we're always together and I act stupid and don't have my guard up when I'm home.
Am I your friend?
Yeah, you're the cool sis.
Jazz, you're everyone's friend.
Hashtag facts.
But am I your cool sis or am I your friend? Because a cool big sister is sort of a one-way thing, right? Like, I don't call and tell you about my life, but friendship is a two-way street.
Yeah, you're the cool sis, but we can tell you everything and you'd spit truth.
I'm crying, thank you so much. Okay, here's a question. Do you guys like each other, even if, do you guys love each other, even if you don't like each other?
I guess we love each other. The dog wrote that.
Yeah, I guess too.
I came back to like 80 messages to read, and I will not. Someone fill me in if you want an answer from me.
Jazmine is interviewing us, asking if we're all friends or just sisters, pretty much.
Yes. Are we your friends, and do you love us?
I think we're all sisters. Me and Javonda are friends, but sisters with everyone else. Like, we're cool, duh, but I'm not gonna voluntarily text you all for no reason besides Javonda. And of course I love you all. Blood is thicker than water. Rolls eyes. But there are mad snakes in the world, and your femme is the only true blue, so I have mad love for you all. Not really true, but you know.
RT.
Yeah, yes.
I'm crying! Did you guys always feel this way, or did it happen recently, after you got old and mature?
Within the past few years, like, I never understood why Mommy called Auntie Sherry.
Maturity, deaf.
For real, I never understood why she called her or her either, but now I get it.
Do you guys call each other?
Only Nanda, so no.
Nope, we all lived together.
One time I wanted to text Jamari, but I forgot, lol.
I think we'll only call if it's been 10 lunar eclipses and we're super bored and want to freak the other sister out.
Yeah, sometimes when I call you guys to say hi, you freak out. But I thought we were all besties. Is it because you hate the phone?
Who hates the phone? Only Lamari does.
Yeah, I called her yesterday and it sucked.
There's a sad emoji.
Her ratings aren't the best. You should have checked Yelp before you called her.
Why doesn't anyone call me then?
You're a star. I kind of assume you're always busy or drinking wine or sobering up from drinking wine.
What does sisterhood mean to you all?
Being there through the I hate yous and mess ups and still being sisters and having one's back and loving them in junk.
That unbreakable bond through thick and thin, even though we hate each other.
Nanda came to preach.
You know I spit facts.
Hello, Jamari. What does sisterhood mean to you?
Having sisters.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. And the next person to the stage is the beautiful Amy Rose Spiegel.
I mean, let's give it up one more time for that gorgeous family. They're the best. So, okay, sisterhood is beautiful. Something it isn't in terms of love is jealousy. And in high school, I was a very jealous person. So I am going to read to you a little bit about that. Thanks, Valentine's. Let's give it up one more time for Rookie on Love and for all of these amazing readers and everybody. Tight. Everyone, at some point in love, is the jealous type. Despite its rampant popularity among lovers throughout history, romantic jealousy can be flummoxing at best and brain-decimating at worst. To begin this essay, which aims to dismantle jealousy's whack and harrowing influence, I've listed how this strain of possessiveness asserts itself as thoroughly as I can. And here's what I came up with. Romantic jealousy means loving something and wanting to protect and aggressively defend it. You don't want to gain what someone else has. It's not quite envy. You want to keep your person closer, tighter. The problem with this is, even if you love reciprocally and respectfully, no one is entirely your person. Feeling jealous means you think of love as personal property that, if not adequately guarded and surveilled, can be taken away from you. Jealousy is a very painful kind of vigilance. Jealousy is induced by little things as much as larger ones, and by things that would surprise the person that you love if they knew, which they never do until you tell them. I hide jealousy because I don't want the other person to hurt, but I'm hurting. Jealousy is mundane and illogical, banal and batshit. I got angry at my jealous self when I was a teenager because I placed my person in a position of responsibility for my own feelings of injustice or betrayal, which can be unfair. I got angry at myself because it proved my love could be exposed to the trivialities and trials of historical and archetypal love as everyone ever has known it. It proved my way of loving was not unique or even rare, and so was unsafe. I thought being jealous meant being dull. As a young buck, I refused to acknowledge that my feelings had a jealousy setting at all, let alone that my brain was frequently and readily tuned to it. I believed, and still believe, that jealousy is most of the time a fruitless, one-sided, self-hating, and stunted state of mind. Unfortunately, that doesn't automatically convince me that my romantic jealousy is just irrational fear. But realizing that I'm responding to a partner's normal-ass goings-on jealously does help me recognize how to move forward. I can't always avoid it, but I can manage and mollify it. My jealousy historically has been recommended by the boring conviction that someone else's attention was all that I had going for me. As with so many other backbiting feelings in life, you can alleviate jealousy by making other actually productive things more immediately true. And so I had some ideas on that reduction. And believe me, this whole essay is about like how I was like terrible and like reading my boyfriend's diaries and whatever. So like believe me, like I came to these honestly. Number one, if you happen to be on the internet, get off of it for a few minutes. This includes anything happening on your phone. Number two, drink a glass of water. 3, write down your feelings, and as my friend Durga wrote in her book, Too Much and Not the Mood, realize that they can end with the 2 words, for now, which suggests to her the given grace of compassion. I like that because for now is a promise. You will not always feel this, and after exists. 4, think about the aspirations you have for yourself outside of romantic or sexual candidacy. You are so much more than the current thing you're bugging out about, not for now, but for always, which will outlast this temporary crisis. If you find yourself becoming jealous over something that doesn't even follow the standards to begin with, it's useful to remind yourself that that's not who you are. And number 5, the hard one. Decide whether to tell your person how you're feeling. If that's based on their actions, like concealing information or being too blatant about other attractions for your comfort, you need to have a conversation. If your jealousy instead lives only in your own fears, that's something that you might be able to work on alone first. Consider what is most helpful and progressive and act accordingly. It's no surprise to me that my jealous self melted when I decided I was determined not to feel so much spite and frustration for the rest of my life, which hadn't worked out so hot at that point. Instead, I wrote consistently. I dressed and looked how I wanted to instead of how I thought I had to in order to measure up to the girls I fretted over. I loved politics and hated them even more vehemently, and I got more involved with them because of both feelings. I made friends. Dated a higher volume of people who were nothing like one another, which reaffirmed to me that there's not one right way to be romantically or sexually viable. There isn't an ideal. There's just you enjoying someone else, and vice versa. It can feel good. Thanks. All right, let's see who we got next. I think next up we have Diamond Sharp. Yeah! Who is incredible.
Okay. Hi. I'm glad you went before me, Amy. You're tall. It like never works out that like this thing actually works for me. Okay, so I wrote about loving your friends. I've fallen in love with friends in the back of cabs, over dinner, and in the ephemeral confines of social media DMs. The women I've connected with are the ones who ground me when life goes left and lift me up when everything is going swimmingly. Since entering my 20s, I've thought a lot about the type of friendships I want. It's still radical to think of your platonic friendships as of equal importance to your romantic relationships. But these purposeful friendships I've crafted have been the backbone of my growth. To me, a purposeful friendship is a relationship with another person who can see you. Purposeful friends accept you for who you are, even when you're not your best self. These people are invested in you for the long haul. Reciprocity is a given. When I think of my closest friendships, I see women with whom I feel restored. Friendship doesn't prevent life from going awry, but it provides folks with you that you can fall back on. But at their best, my deliberate friendships are sustaining, and I've fallen in love with my friends unapologetically. My friendships weren't always like this. Friendship is a weird because you're like essentially telling a stranger, hi, hello, I like you and I would like to keep you in my life forever. Are you okay with that? That's cool, fine. Yeah, it goes just like that. Just like in a romantic relationship, it's possible for you to kiss a few proverbial frogs while figuring out who fulfills you. In high school, I took cues from girlfriends and different world reruns. I wanted a circle that was unbreakable. I tried on and dropped friends. Our connections were largely superficial, which is essentially kind of high school, if you've ever been. It wasn't until college that I made lasting friends. It's cliche to talk about the bond students form at women's school, but it was a true phenomenon for me. My time at Wolsey taught me to be unafraid of intimate friendships with women. Now that I'm finally, firmly planted in my adult life, I've built my relationships on mutual interests, to be unafraid of love. To be Black and a woman means existing at the intersections of being unseen and objectified. Within the group of Black women I surround myself with, I am seen. I allow myself to be the most human. With them, I can sit in silence or be loud or cry or be a complete mess. I'm able to be a complex person among the Black women I forge bonds with in a way I cannot be with the world writ large. And yet, sometimes it feels like friendships are discounted or treated as substitutes. There is a saying that blood is thicker than water, meaning that your biological family will always stand by you in a way you cannot trust your friends to do. We also live in a country where it's expected that your partner or spouse can be your everything. Perhaps that's true for some, but I never want it to be my reality. My early 20s coincided with my onset of bipolar II disorder. I've spent a lot of time getting back to where I was before the illness. When I think of my darkest moments, I remember the friends who let me sleep over the nights my hypomania became too much for me to handle on my own, or the friend who helped me pack for my first hospitalization, or the friend who attempted to sneak a cupcake past hospital security because she wanted to cheer me up. It was like one of those $5 cupcakes, and they like kept it at security as a whole thing. Psych wards are like very calming, but boring. The food is not good. They aren't. Okay, but go if you need to go. My lowest lows have not been the end of me. It's no small part because of the community of women I'm part of. I've been lucky to have friends who see me completely and know when things are wrong, even if I'm not yet aware. All these women have taught me to be my best self. I'm unafraid to tell my friends that I love them and mean it. In her novel, Beloved, Toni Morrison wrote, "She is a friend of mine. She gathered me, man. The pieces I am, she gathered them and give them back to me in all the right order. This is the beauty of friendships that I have. I am able to be both unfinished and complete, knowing that my friends will be present when I'm in pieces are whole." Thank you. Okay. The next person is Akwaeke Emezi.
Hello, everyone. I am not as tall as Diamond. My piece is on love and associated leavings. The next person I fell in love with was someone else's husband and father. I threw myself out of a chair at his house, screaming and crying because he had threatened to leave me, my body convulsing at his feet. He watched, satisfied. If you have a cruel streak, there is pleasure in knowing someone loves you more than you love them. It makes you feel powerful. In your mind, they shift. Their smell changes. It becomes soft, weak. They become a thing you can hunt or disregard or pounce on or bend just for the fun of seeing how long they take to break. At my apartment, he walked into my tiny bathroom as I stood at the sink. "You're sick," he said, but gently, because he wanted me to believe it too. "There's something wrong with you." Then, his voice over a phone as I sobbed and hyperventilated, "Go and kill yourself." And still, me weeping on the floor of his house, begging not to lose him. No one leaves me. Months later, when I left him, he punched the dashboard of his truck over and over as we drove toward my place, his infant son lying in the car seat next to me. I watched, satisfied. Sometimes I couldn't tell the difference between how I felt and what I wanted people to believe I was feeling, because lies work best if you believe them too. I tried to make myself into everything they could ever want, just so they could need me, a customized dream, a specific snare. I met men who mistook that for malleability, and it made them comfortable. They felt I would never leave, that I needed them, that the love I held for them made me weak, a sure and spineless thing. It's a common mistake, thinking that just because someone doesn't want you to leave them, they're not preparing to leave you. We leverage love in such predictable ways, trying to keep people with it, wanting suffering as proof. If someone can leave you without being destroyed, you think their love wasn't true. It seems impossible that someone could love you and yet walk away. You're supposed to stay. You're not supposed to be able to live without the other person. Even within friendships, to abandon someone you love reads as a hostile act. You're supposed to make it work. I've done that, spent hours trying to fix things, waited weeks for a friend I fell in love with to care that our everything was in jeopardy, defended my humanity to a loved one who wouldn't see their privilege. But sometimes you realize that the thing you're trying to change is the other person. And that's when, love or not, you should probably stop. In that moment, take stock. You can accept this thing about them, this thing they've said or done that they have no remorse for, or you can refuse and leave. Some people choose to stay, fighting to make the other person see what's wrong so they can care enough to fix it. I don't believe in that, mostly because I won't fight for the validity of my pain to be recognized by someone who's supposed to care about me. Not anymore. Nowadays, I just leave. An old and familiar choice, yes, but it looks different this time. It moves and feels and tastes like something else. Before, when I was younger and unleashed, I left people either because I was selfish and I'd kept them longer than I should have, or because they treated me terribly and my leaving was timed retaliation. But then years passed, and the losses kept coming, whether I planned them or not, and the emptiness knocked about inside me, and I got tired. It stopped mattering if people left because I realized everything is susceptible to an ending. You can't control it. You can bend yourself into unthought-of contortions. You can flail and cry and beg. You can love so hard that you reek of desperation and it does nothing. It does nothing. Rejection still happens. And after a while, even manipulating people feels pointless. I had always been the perpetrator or the victim, or sometimes, marvelously, both. And I was tired. I found myself wanting love where I was safe, where no one had to suffer because everyone was always tender, always careful, where hurts were accidental and not malicious, where we, lovers or friends, were soft with one another. Because to be honest, the rest of the world is wicked enough for all our lifetimes. Thank you. And next we have Laia Garcia.
I don't want to go now. I feel like we all need to like sit with that for a while. And okay, well, but I mean, I have to do this. This is okay. I don't think it's there anymore. I had just gotten into bed when I realized I hadn't seen it in a while. I thought back to when I got out of the shower earlier and looked at my naked body in the mirror. Had I looked at my hips? Was anything there? When was the last time I'd seen this tattoo? I stared at the dark ceiling as I lay snug underneath my covers. Should I check if the tattoo was still there? Surely it must be, but what if it had really disappeared? I have never been addicted to drugs or alcohol. I have never engaged in dangerous sexual activities. I have never been a bad girl. I have never been one to willingly lose control of myself. I think about this often as a shortcoming. My inability to let myself lose control feels like a barrier to my fully becoming a woman. To be a woman is to lose yourself in something and to maybe come back from it triumphant. Do all the things you're not supposed to. Come close to death, then relinquish the vices, write about it, become a woman. How can I become a woman if I have no interest in becoming a cautionary tale? On the year I turned 27 years old, I decided my life up to that point was not turning out the way that I wanted. That year, I broke up with the boyfriend I had been dating on and off for the better part of 5 years. I realized that I had spent most of my adult life in 2 long-term relationships. I had not slept with enough people. I thought it should be at least 10. A nice number if you're thinking of embarking on a controlled experiment, which I definitely was. I joined OkCupid. Let's see what happens if I do this thing became my mantra. I went on dates with boys I met online. I went home with boys I met in real life. I let an Argentinian break my heart. I flirted with a boy in a band while they were playing on stage. I got involved with a boy and then broke up with him despite the fact that we'd never once kissed or had sex for the entire 3 months of our tryst. I was following my desires wherever they took me. I look back at pictures of me during this time and I'm happy because I was doing exactly what I wanted and when I wanted. And then I met Joseph, not his real name. Joseph messaged me first, and I liked him because he had used a pencil as a pickup line, which was completely ridiculous but also utterly perfect. After 2 weeks, we made plans to meet for dinner. I was not expecting anything to come of it. It was a Sunday night, and I had work the next day. I did not shave my legs. I did not carefully pick out an outfit. I was not nervous. Joseph was by far the most handsome man I had ever been with on a date, which did not actually make me nervous because he was so out of my reach. But then drinks turned to dinner, and by the time dessert came around, we kissed after one bite of the apple tart we were sharing. We kissed on the street on the way to a bar, and we kissed at the bar ignoring the drinks we had ordered while we were trying to ignore that all we wanted was really each other. We eventually made our way back to his place. I fell asleep with my head on his chest. This was a fun night, I thought, but there's no way this will become anything else. Except I saw him the next day, and the next day, and the day after that. We didn't so much start dating as much as we just did not leave each other's side. He said, "I love you" a few weeks in, and I remember feeling the world spinning around me. That was October. By the following February, things were already slipping away. There were serious conversations to be had. The bubble had burst, but instead of walking away, I was bathing in the sticky, soapy spots on the floor. That July, we broke up. He wasn't attracted to me, he said. I was too young, he said. I was too depressed, he said. We got back together a week later at my friend's wedding. It was never the same after that, and now looking back, there were so many times I thought I needed to get out of it. But relationships take work, I told myself. This is what being an adult is like, I told myself. That November, we broke up. He wasn't attracted to me, he said. He wanted to see other people, he said. Still, I spent Thanksgiving with him and his family, sleeping in the same bed but not touching each other. That winter, his apartment lost heat, so he temporarily moved in with me. We were back together by February, but it was probably the circumstances more than anything else. I understood our relationship had no legs to stand on. I knew I couldn't trust him. I knew I was becoming a different person. I knew I was putting up with lies and behaviors that were not okay. Things that an old version of me would have had no patience for. But this was a new me. I couldn't walk away. I didn't want to walk away. Suddenly, I realized I completely lost control of myself. I had been going on a years-long bender, and I had developed an addiction to see how much I could feel, how many things I could put my heart and my brain through and still wake up the next day ready for more. Although I had a lot of shame about this behavior, I also felt a weird sense of pride. Pride in how much I could handle, how much I'd be willing to stand. That month, at a friend's house, the topic turned to stick and poke tattoos. My friend had ink and needles, and in the ultimate junkie move, Joseph tattooed a childhood nickname of his on my hip. Let's see what happens if I do this thing. They say matching tattoos are bad luck for the couple, but we already had no future. There is nothing to risk, no luck to hope for. It wasn't so much a symbol of our love to each other, but a symbol of my unwavering commitment to love, to this love that had become lethal somewhere along the line. Je ne regrette rien, I wrote in a journal. I had finally given up all control. I had gone mad. That July, we broke up again and got back together in the space of a couple hours. Neither ready to be without the other. I was his crutch, and he was mine. I was certain he started seeing someone else. I was high as a kite on emotions, listening to Fiona Apple and Sheryl Crow songs to feel everything more. Their voices like a blade on my skin. I felt everything so much. How much deeper could I take it all? And still, I stayed. The following April, after dinner with his brother and his brother's girlfriend at the same restaurant where we had our first date, I broke up with him. We had planned for me to spend the night at his place, but as we were getting ready to hail a cab, he said he would prefer to fly solo. It was a minor detail, but it was the last straw. My life had become exhausting. There were text messages from an ex-girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, and their dubious explanation. The time I went on a work trip to Europe when he sent only 2 or 3 emails in the entire 2 weeks I was away. My limits could not be tested any further. Not by me, not by him. The experiment was over. No one could ever say I didn't try, that I threw in the towel and walked away when things became difficult. I had turned our relationship into a trial by fire, and I was Khaleesi, being reborn. It was done. Almost a year later, all these things came flashing back to me as I lay in bed, wondering whether the tattoo he had given me was still on my hip. I turned over on my side, closed my eyes, and fell asleep. I did not check to see if it was still there. Thank you. And up next, we have Bassey.
Wow, there are people back there. Hello, people back there. Just really quickly before I read, Tavi, I've been practicing how to say your last name for like 2 weeks, and it's gone. Sorry. When Tavi emailed me a couple of months ago, a year ago, to ask me about this, love was the absolute last thing that I wanted to think about or write about. So I deflected, like I want to do, and I was like, here's a bunch of stuff, just pick one. What's funny is that I had a day today, and Diamond talked about bipolar 2 disorder. I also have bipolar 2 disorder and lots of anxiety, and today was one of those anxiety-filled days. So when I remembered one of the poems that I had in here, it was fitting. I wrote it the day Amy Winehouse died. And I remember a lot of people that day were talking. They were doing that thing where they try to be sympathetic and empathetic, but then they remind you of her drugs and the drinking and the this and the that. And it made me realize that though I never had a drug problem or a drinking problem, I did have, that love addiction, not even necessarily sex, but just love addiction. And so I wrote this for Amy and other women who carry chaos. Quote, "If you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it." Zora Neale Hurston. "This flame and flicker was not meant to last this long. We were not meant to chase the sun this often. uncertain as we are that the days will occur without us. So we awake and lift and push and throw our bodies across these minutes, collecting respectable stacks of time. We wish to be praised for trying. Maybe someone will call us brave or strong or marvel about how we are not like this one or that one, sure that those whispers do not touch our skin. Drugs, booze, men that hate you for loving them, all this to dull the ache of living. Say we are worth this trouble that we cause. Say you will love us until the chaos slides off our bones. Lie if you must. We like the weight of water. Appreciate how tidal waves mimic our moods, carry our hearts out to sea, seek life raft, seek buoy, return shipwrecked, splintered, debris, salt water and bloodstained. We try every morning, new beginnings, then crawl hands and knees back to our beds when night falls. Call out to God, Jehovah, Allah. Pray someone will tell Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, anyone who answers when we are at war with ourselves. Choose drugs, choose booze. Choose men who hate us for loving them. Say we are worth this trouble we cause. Say if we pray hard enough, this chaos will slide off our bones. Lie if you must. It is only a matter of time before we stop bleeding, but they will ridicule the stains on our sheets. Before the ache has fully left us, they will ask us what we did to cause this, why we couldn't welcome sun like the rest of the world, why we turned to men and drugs and booze instead of God and work and money. Nobody has the heart to tell them for us. We did not choose this, did nothing to deserve or invite this beast in. We did not request our footprints on the sun, this chaos we wear on our heads. This life is neither punishment nor reward. Your life turns palm over fist, easy like judgment. We fight ourselves, avoid our palms, duck our fists just so we can live the life you ease into. Say that we can make it out alive, unbroken, scarred a little less. So just tell us. Tell us that we're worth this trouble we cause. Say that this chaos will one day slide off our bones. Lie if you must. Thank you. And next up is the reason we're all here, the woman, the amazing woman who had this brilliant idea, and I'm so grateful to be here to listen to my lovely ones and everyone, but also to be part of this collection. Thank you so much for this. Tavi, last name.
Oh, I was so sure from down there that I'd come up to like here, which I basically do. Thank you so much for reading, and thank you to everyone who's here tonight. And weirdly, the thing that I'm going to read, I remembered while Bassey was reading that at that time, I was really into a poem of yours called Fuck, Fear, Love Anyway, which everyone should Google and read. And I have stuff in the book, obviously, but I had been rereading some stuff that I wrote a couple years ago about, I guess, pretty on theme for tonight if we're talking about, like, relationships you should have left. And I was so impressed with the passing of time that I could reread this and, like, feel nothing. And I think that's why time is cool and heals all wounds. And you may have read some of this already on Rookie in a series I did last fall called The Infinity Diaries. So this is a very condensed version of that. Oh, sorry, more background. You should know that at this time I was in a play, which I will talk about, called This Is Our Youth, where I had just moved to New York. I started seeing this person who we'll call John. And every night I did this play where I played like a girl my age in New York whose entire arc was like figuring out if a guy liked her or not every night. So when I talk about certain people, they're just like my cast or my director, and the character is named Jessica. Oh my God, now it's like homework. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Had a friend describe to me a relationship like mine with John, I would wonder why she didn't feel she deserved better. But because I think of myself as having a basic sense of self-respect, I dismissed any concern over why I was okay with it all. Surely I would never get myself into a relationship like that. Look at my feminist credentials. As it turns out, frequently being told that you are a prodigy does not translate to feelings of desirability or attractiveness. If anything, it detracts from them. I thought I was just really lucky to be with him, this male ingenue, this silent film star. Together we created a Kuleshov effect, that trick of filmmaking in which the same shot of an actor is used between shots of whatever they're looking at. Their expression remains the same, so the audience is free to project their own feelings about what's being looked at and call it the character's reaction. Depending on how I felt about myself on a certain day in a certain outfit or having said certain things, his unchanging face confirmed my greatest desires or fears. The less he said, the more judgments he must have been passing, the more for me to prove wrong. The more shit he must have known about what makes someone cool, pretty, or sexy, which I had yet to learn. The more substance he must have had. The more of a secret genius he was inside, if only I wasn't such a failure at bringing it out. Or maybe he just didn't have much to say. Or maybe there wasn't much to say. Eventually, he said he felt like his job was just to watch me enjoy my new life. That he was shocked that I cared in the end as much as I did. That I was fronting too, that he didn't want to impose. Charlie Chaplin, after being mauled by a mob of fans in Paris in 1925, screamed out, "It's all nothing. It's all a joke. It can all be explained, I tell you. It's all nothing." Once This Is Our Youth closed in January, it was too sad to stay in the city. We both had work in Los Angeles, so we spent a month out there in a giant minimalist house with a lot of empty white for me to pace around in while he slept, agonizing over a line from the show that I was only just now understanding and would never get to say again. We went to parties that made me sad, and I went to the beach alone. I texted a friend a deadpan selfie in front of the normally beautiful view from the Griffith Park Observatory and said, "I feel nothing." She wrote back, "A definite blessing. It's okay to feel nothing, as I'm sure you know. Nothing outside of ourselves is ever gonna be the thing. Not career, not boyfriend, not a Met ball. You might feel nothing because you're forgetting that you're everything." Was I, though? Everything I defined myself by had evaporated with the play. Even my feminism felt phony, what with all this recent self-loathing. I kept waiting for a party to not be depressing. I kept reading F. Scott Fitzgerald's brutal The Crack Up, surrounded by the ghosts of those who'd fallen from grace in a city that had promised them everything. I kept extending my stay, even though all it did was mute my loss with beating sunshine, stir my uncertainty about this relationship on nauseating drives, each of us quietly, self-consciously half-singing along to Just Like Heaven in the car. Sad, sad, sad. Eventually, we were staying in a poolside cottage at the Chateau Marmont. I don't know. It's French. Because it's great to stay in a place that is known for hosting the deaths of young, successful people when you've just finished up a project you're pretty sure will never happen again, and people have asked you since you were 12 if you're worried you'll one day crack from the pressure and kill yourself, like young prodigies so often do, and you're also wondering somewhere inside if your only current semblance of an authority figure, the only person who feels big enough to hold you, only likes you for your youth, for being so small. One night, in an Uber back to the hotel, I tried to buoy myself above the black leather seats, to not sink back into silent paranoia and sleep with him another night without knowing he cared as much as I did. And so, while we were in bed and having sex, it occurred to me that my drunkenness was the perfect excuse for finally asking, you don't want to sleep with anyone else, right? Because I don't want to sleep with anyone else, and I have no reason to sleep with anyone else. And you shouldn't want to sleep with anyone else. And if you do want to sleep with anyone else, then really what you should do right now is just stop. Wait, can you just stop? He stopped. Do you want to sleep with anyone else? He let out a little laugh, or maybe forced it. I only want to sleep with you. 'Kay. Over the course of the entire next day, I tried to have an honest conversation by being extremely indirect. Oh no, gosh, I'm spiraling over things I might have done when I was drunk last night. I remember being kind of annoying. Was I annoying? You were a little annoying. Hey, watch it. Okay, well, guess you'd know better than I. 2 hours later. Did I, say anything embarrassing? You might have. Yikes! Zoink! Back to sleep in this really fucking bleak hotel then, which makes me utterly depressed about success and aging and everything coming to an end. 3 hours later. Well, what did I say? If you remember, but if not, then, no worries. No worries. You asked if no worries. If I wanted to have sex with anyone else. Whoa there! Haha, yeah. What is this? Topsy-Turvyville? Pee-wee Herman's Big Adventure? Can it, sister, right? Honk, honk. 4 hours later. Sometimes when you tease me, I like it, but sometimes I don't. Why do you think you only like it sometimes? I think that when I don't, it's because I'm already feeling insecure. Do you feel insecure about yourself? Not about, what I think of myself, but I guess about this situation. Nothing has really been established, right? A time lapse of a bean sprouting over the course of many months. And what I said last night, who's calling me from Kalamazoo? I'm sorry. I don't know what that was about. And what I said last night, even though I was drunk, it was probably already on my mind, and I just had to be drunk to say it, Right. A generation of British infants have their childhoods documented for the Up series. But I would be surprised if either of us had the time to see anyone else. Right. Right? Right. Laugh out loud. Chuck E. Cheese. I am not in love with you and you will never hurt me. In March, I went back to my parents' house outside Chicago for the first time since moving out. I'd lived there my whole life, but it was no longer home, more like a museum. The grass outside was frozen, and the mess in my teenage bedroom was exactly where I'd left it. Heaps of clothes untouched, books lying open to the very same pages. The whole thing could have been a dream. I saw a doctor for the daily, sometimes twice a day panic attacks that had started a few weeks after the show closed. I started looking for a therapist. I gave a talk at the University of Wisconsin. My parents and I sat in the hotel restaurant with glass windows extending all the way up to a very high ceiling, overlooking the frozen lake that Otis Redding's plane crashed into. R.I.P. that time that John tried to get me to dance with him to try a little tenderness. Young girls get weary. I sobbed. I did this show every night for 8 months. I repeated the same words over and over, and now I have nothing. It was the most amazing experience, and I have no document of it, no journal, no proof of what happened to me. My dad suggested speaking into a recorder and just going through everything that had taken place. But that would mean it was over. John was my last remaining attachment to the perfect little snow globe of those first few months in New York, and we all knew we were pretty much doomed. I broke down again days later in my dad's office chair, said I just knew it was unsustainable. I moved into a friend's in the city for the rest of my stay. I started a note card system for working through my panic, reviewing our time together before the show closing broke the spell, without getting too painfully nostalgic. I tried to think back to the fall and winter, see what specifically I wanted to salvage. But it was just the simple being together that could happen when both people knew, somewhere only slightly consciously, that the long term was not a possibility. The ease, the open eyes. I did feel like myself around him. I wasn't always censoring and posturing. Sometimes we would just be lying around and joking and talking, and it was so. And then I became aware of what was happening and had to kill it by making a joke or being a brat or something. Oliver Sacks said that when he took hallucinogens to see the controversial, rarefied, never totally agreed upon color of indigo. As if thrown by a paintbrush, a huge pear-shaped blob of the purest indigo appeared on the wall. It again had the sort of luminous quality. I leant towards it in a sort of ecstasy. I thought, this is the color of heaven, or this is the color which Giotto tried to get all his life but never could. I thought, maybe this is not a color which actually exists on the earth, or maybe it used to exist and no longer exists. And all of this went through my mind in 4 or 5 seconds, and then the blob disappeared, giving me a strong sense of loss and heartbrokenness. And I was haunted a little bit when I came down, wondering whether indigo did exist in the real world. I made progress on Christmas Eve when we were at his place after he saw my play. The city was so quiet, and his apartment was all dark except for the movies we had on in the background. He was sitting up in bed, sick, allowing me to see him a mess with a cracking voice. I was not worried about catching it, wanted only to show him how much I still liked him, until I just couldn't take it anymore and had to throw my face against his shoulder and groan a bunch while he asked what, and I groaned some more and finally croaked like a dying relative or like the old chocolate lady in SpongeBob. Cute! He pulled me up, my face in front of his. I'm cute? Yeah, you're cute. We were both cute. It was a Christmas miracle. I think I proceeded to form non-words with my mouth and flop around. Maybe he did the same. Or maybe we were both real people who managed to get over ourselves and get out more than that. I don't remember, because I was really there. And now I was so afraid it would never happen again that I jumped whenever he texted me, labored over each response. I had to finally address the inklings of the ending that I'd felt while we were together, even in the circular time zone of the play's run. My own version of Jessica's hopping up from the bed to ask if Warren really likes her or not. One night in November, our director Anna gave us notes in the dressing room and talked about how important it was that when Jessica is later upset with Warren for telling Dennis that they slept together, she's not grossed out or embarrassed. She's hurt. She's saying, I trusted you. It was also unanimous among Anna, our playwright, and the cast that Jessica would ultimately be okay. She's just very young, Anna said. It doesn't mean she's stupid. She just literally hasn't been alive long enough to know what to do in this situation. When Gogol visited Countess Sophia Sologub, she told him of 2 dreams in which she was able to pray as she never had in waking life. Gogol told her, "They are signs of God's mercy. Bring your soul to a state where you can pray in reality as you prayed in the dream, and your soul will surely tell you better than any wise men what these dreams mean and what God wants of you by them." Although these dreamlike love affairs are not built to last, the moments of connection are true, and while the events themselves will never repeat, their spirit can be replicated. You've done it once before. I'll never know who's good and who's evil, or how happy I really was, or anything ever, it seems. But by doing my best to interpret these dreams and knowing there could be no clear end to these epiphanies or one correct narrative, I have made it so that at last, the decision to stop holding this one in particular on a pedestal feels purely intellectual and not oppressively out of my control. The ache is so tempting. I can put on any song I listened to back then to feel what I felt in the cab on the way over, going up in his building's elevator, finally in this little vacuum together, which became my home briefly. But something inside me conquers this nostalgia, this desire to miss, the simple knowledge that these feelings will happen again. New feelings will happen if I let them. As our playwright said of the idea that a play is doing the same thing every night, you never do, because you've never been alive today before. And the same goes for tomorrow, and the next day, and the next.